listeners, I will just say you were celebrating anniversaries this morning.
Oh,
Your first anniversary being on air, but
part
also
of Team Radio 786 years.
yes, and we're celebrating also 17 years being on this particular path since
Wow.
we actually first celebrated the coming of age of young girls.
Wow.
And this was such for us such an amazing event. And I've got the cover here of the video where we're actually having a picture of these young girls, you know. And but we thought we could not have celebrated this beautiful time in their life without knowledge, and just teaching them and about their menstruation and the power of the menstruation.
Wow.
Right? And
Seen Arush.
the Sin Arush, the path towards maturity and responsibility. That was our first. And if you look at the picture at the back, Sister Khadija, you will see Qadira there. Actually, a very familiar face, right? And also how confident she is today, a confident young woman, also having gone through this particular program. So again, coming through the blessings that women have in stages of puberty and childbearing and menopause. I also can't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough, you know, for the opportunity now that I'm a grandmother today. You know, looking back, it's been an amazing journey of learning and unlearning, I would say, and relearning. So as women, we have somehow, and why the need for us to have these kind of conversations is because we have somehow inherited a culture that doesn't view our cyclic nature as being a blessing, right? But a burden or a curse.
Yes.
So we have been taught really to fear or not to like our cycles, right? So also on the other hand, Sister Khadija, I want to mention that the impact of malnutrition and poverty that has on the reproductive organs of women, right? It actually has an impact on everything that makes us female. And you can also wonder why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so serious about social justice within the surah of Nisaa, the surah of the woman, because her environment is so crucial, right? So we need to have these important conversations, not only during this particular month of women. So what do we want to do, and we have been doing for the past 16 years or more, really is to update the legacy of our mothers. So the truth is actually is that we cannot love being a woman while hating our period, right? Because what we learn also is at her first bleeding, a woman actually meets a power,
Yeah.
you know, and also during her bleeding years, she practices it, right? And at menopause, she becomes it, right?
Beautiful.
So, yeah, you see, so what we learn is that our menses is such makes us of who we are as women. It is who we are. What is a woman without a menses and without a crown? I would say there's another saying. Because what we learn from the experience of the women who went through the Holocaust in concentration camps, what they've been, how it actually impacted on their femininity and their feeling about being a woman. Because now you're on your menses, what do?
Yeah.
You are just dressed in this thin clothing, you know, one layer of clothing.
And you're bleeding.
And you're bleeding, and your head is all shaven. So how women actually, how that impacted on women. And that's why I feel this feeling of your period becoming a curse, because now you have been stripped from your dignity.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we don't think, when we think Holocaust, when you think oppression, when we think concentration camps, do we really think of what women have been
Absolutely.
experiencing and
Absolutely
how that
true.
particular negative energy has been passed on through generations?
Yes, yes,
And now
yes.
our duty is now to actually to bring us back, for us to women to feel that our menses is actually a blessing.
Absolutely,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Auntie Magboeba, you know what? I can't help but smile because these are conversations that when you listen to Community Pulse, these are conversations that between myself and Farida, our lovely producer, that's basking in the sun along with us, that we keep having. Why is having your period seen as an impediment? Why is it a hush conversation? This is how Allah created our bodies
Absolutely.
to enable us to produce babies, to produce humans.
Absolutely.
And so the idea of celebrating it and not sweeping this conversation under the carpet, but also realizing that having that menses every single month, yes, there's one or two other complications that's often associated with it. And for us to open up these conversations and also understand mentally, as you're speaking now, the impacts that it may have on one, understanding these different stages of womanhood, it is so important to nurture this from a young girl
Absolutely.
age.
And it is a cleansing, Sister Khadija. You know, it's not that we, because the Quran doesn't speak about what is, the Quran speaks about the mahid, the menstruating woman. Allah doesn't mention najis, it doesn't mention dirt. Allah
Or that you
says,
become an impediment in
no,
some way.
Allah says it's a time of discomfort, right? So here we learn that it is a cleansing, it is a moral cleansing, and it's a spiritual cleansing, it's a physical cleansing. If the blood stays inside of us, we will get sick. It's an emotional cleansing. So through our workshops, Sister Khadija, we actually unpacked all these concepts and we unpacked all these levels. Why do we say it's actually an immoral cleansing? Because your period is actually teaching us so much. We also say it's truth-telling time. It's truth-telling time.
I just want to
because
pause on
your
that.
blood actually says a lot. Your blood flow says a lot. Your blood actually means life.
So one shouldn't be in conflict with this process.
Absolutely. It's also about family. So normally when women bleed too much, it also says a lot of what her physical situation might be or her environment might be like. Women also who bleed actually irregularly also. It speaks to us, our body speaks to us all the time.
Yes,
And also why we say it's an emotional cleansing as well. Because normally before we get our period, we normally become very tense and very emotional. It's because something is happening, isn't it so?
Yes.
So we are most of the time emotional because there's something that needs to be remedied within our lives. And most of the time it's family.
But it again speaks to this idea or this concept around us as holistic beings that you cannot have a physiological process taking place without it in some way or the other impact on your mental state.
Absolutely.
And your emotional state.
Yeah.
And this goes for every single human being. This particular, of course, process we highlight. It's Women's Month also.
Yes.
And yes, because this is something that's a part and parcel of our life every single month.
Absolutely, Sister Khadija. And it gives us much pleasure, through these workshops and interactive seminars that we actually guide these young women and mothers as well with this beautiful phase in their lives, And now during her bleeding years, she practiced this particular, she practiced her menses. When we learn about our inner calendar that we have. Our menses, during our menses, we are in our winter time.
How amazing is the body that it self-regulates in that way?
In our winter time. And when we, I would say before ovulation, we are in our spring. And during ovulation, we're in our summer. And before our menses, or premenstrual, we're actually in our autumn. So we can use actually that particular calendar to guide us, to navigate us, help us navigate us through life. Right? That's just in a nutshell I'm mentioning now. And coming to menopause, because people think also menopause is actually a time where I'm actually spiraling downwards. I'm going into old age and things like that.
No, it's a different type of celebration.
I would really say it's a rebirth, Sister Khadija. I don't know where you're at the moment as a woman, but I learned this, that it's actually a rebirth. It's actually a time for a new partner, I always say. So the new partner is not somebody else or in a that new partner is actually you.
Disclaimer.
Yes. The male partner is actually you. Because it's where women actually keep their wife's blood. We don't ovulate anymore, right? So we don't go through the ups and downs of menses as a time when women can actually live their creativity. And many women actually go, I say it's a time to do the unfinished business, to finish the unfinished business. Because when you were young, you actually put all your dreams aside and then give your time for family and all of that. So now that the children are older and they're perhaps out of the house, you can actually concentrate on yourself. So you also remain in this beautiful, amazing time, or I would say this energy or this wave of continuous creativity. So just in a nutshell, that is what our 3 cycles are all about. But also, as in some cultures, the menopausal women are being held in very high regard.
Absolutely.
Because she's the one who have had the experience, and she's the one who actually now have to seed her wisdom into the community. She's also a very powerful woman because, as here where she can say a strong no to things that doesn't serve life. Right? So here's when you find...
that doesn't add value to her,
yes,
her life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm just thinking, Sister Magboeba, as you're talking through this, that if one just sort of alters your lens a bit, you realize how privileged one is to go through these almost transformative processes at different times of our life. Because the reality is, with transformation, you don't emerge on the other side, exactly the same. You emerge on the other side with the life experience, the physiological experience, and it's so much more to you than that.
Absolutely.
So every time when you embrace this transformation, you also embrace it with all of the whatever challenges it may be, but you really, really come out on the other side a different person. And I think part of the whole process is for us to embrace this and to not constantly succumb to the triggers that we get from society that say in some or the other, you are now lesser than, or you ought to be this or you ought to be that.
I said to Nazima just earlier, because she's also a product of our workshops. Sister Nazima, she has 3 daughters. Sister Khadija, the girls that you see on that particular picture that I showed you are all confident. I would say most of them are confident young women. And for me as a grandmother today, Sister Khadija, without having not have researched this knowledge and knowing who I am as a woman and as a grandmother, it makes relationships so much easier.
Absolutely.
Because now that I have an understanding of myself as a woman and a mother, I naturally have an understanding of where my daughter-in-law finds herself, being a young mother. So I can empathize with her, I can help her, I can assist her,
Yeah.
like that. So it makes relationships so much easier, But Allah Ta'ala teaches in the Quran that I've created you mates of like nature. Right? So we need to understand our nature as male and female.
Yes.
And earlier I listened to the beautiful testimonies of men, supporting their wives during their menopause, during their menstruation. And that's all that women need, Sister Khadija, is support.
Yeah.
We need to be loved and to be treated with compassion. And that actually, I feel also what it invokes in the male as well.
Yes.
That protective.
It's a different type of understanding.
That protective role, he feels you want to protect.
Yeah.
Because of these amazing women in his life. So here we feel how we can actually build homes, build families, and in a larger context, we look at building communities, right, and strengthening communities.
And that's exactly, if I look at the back of this cover,
Yes.
this is exactly what it says here. I mean, it really like jumped out at me when I'm reading this quote, women are primal elements in the formation and survival of families.
Our families.
Families, when we speak about families as being the cornerstone of a society, and you realize how central women are to that. But again, not just to highlight this nurturing, soft, compassionate side, but to see women in the entirety.
Absolutely.
And not see women as only having a period and women as only, as the bearers of babies.
Yes.
But women in our entirety, in all of our glorious selves. It really is about highlighting that. And then, of course, equipping ourselves with the knowledge and what you were speaking about now. When we speak about these different stages, when we speak about starting points, when we speak about menstruation, and then, of course, menopause. But now, so which brings me to that. Menopause, is this the final stage of womanhood?
Sister Khadija, I think it's the best. It's the best time in a woman's life, I would say, because I can talk about experience, and now, but also, I would say the best time, but with knowledge, with being conscious of who you are. If you have attained or acquired that particular consciousness, you become this woman, I would say this woman, this whole woman, I would say, complete, I would say. And you live that completeness. And through that completeness, we also find that you actually attract actual respect from the community.
Yes, absolutely.
Because when you walk in confidence and you walk in your own wisdom as a woman, you naturally attract that particular respect from the community.
Yes, of course, of course. And you made mention now of the conversation that Ayub had with one of the representatives earlier, and myself, and even we spoke of it, we exactly spoke about that, about how integral, and let's call it empirical evidence is, or how important or how core to this the personal is, and personal experience. Those are things you cannot put a price on. I mean, book knowledge you can gain, you can spend hours and hours in the library, but engaging with one another, and realizing the interrelational nature of human beings. and not always seeing it as gender specific, but having that type of understanding, it fosters a different type of intensity and strength to that
Absolutely.
relationship.
Absolutely. Many women who have gone through the workshops, Sister Khadija, just feedback from them. You know, one lady said, "My husband is just want to be around me." He's like a bee attracted to honey. He would just wants
Because
to
you
be.
are honey.
Yes, you know, it's because when women live in their essence,
Uh.
when they live in their knowing of
Yeah.
who they are, you know, that is when you attract the masculine energy that you want to attract, but what you need to attract, really.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
see, so it really starts with us as women. You know, if we can actually live in that essence in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us.
Absolutely,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's something that confidence, and
Yes.
unfortunately, as you pointed out, that level of confidence one only gains later in life when you realize,
Yeah.
you know, that you can set the terms,
Yes.
that you can sort of decide the frameworks and what you're okay with, and being able to say no, as you mentioned, exactly because puberty is a time of so much unsettlement, and these workshops that you're referring to, it offered girls an opportunity to speak openly about these sorts of challenges and what's happening to them emotionally, and realizing that, you know, normalizing these conversations is what ought to be, exactly what ought to be. So with that in mind, Sister Magboeba, when you speak to our daughters, when we speak to our daughters, when you speak to our mothers, our sisters, our aunts, in regards to female health, and of course not female health in a myopic sense. We're not just talking about putting a plus something. We talk about our overall well-being and these blessings of the different stages of womanhood. What would be, you know, and it's difficult to encapsulate this, but what would be the message that you would send out there?
I would say really, Sister Khadija, is that for women to really to look inside of themselves. You know, there's one particular area where we actually start off these seminars is about unveiling the mysteries of the womb. You know, and do we really as women really take notice of this organ within our bodies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us with? The womb is not so much only about our menses and ovulation and reproductivity and all of that and labor and all of that. It has so much wisdom. You know, the womb. It's our gut. It's our lower heart. And the message I want to leave with women today is that if the lower heart is locked, if it's blocked because of humiliation and because of rejection and because of rape and because of abuse, the higher heart is not able to open. And it's like also our uterus is actually linked to our voice as well. And that's why you also find women not having a voice. It's because of the pain and the storm that they carry within their wombs.
Yeah.
So that cleansing first need to take place.
Yeah.
You know, to cleanse the womb from all of that humiliation, from negative messages, from all of that, cleanse that, and then the higher heart will open up. And that's when a woman resonates whatever is in her heart when she speaks from her soul.
Yeah, yeah.
You understand what
And
I
it's
mean?
such a beautiful
Yes,
process.
it is a beautiful process.
And seeing it in much less clinical terms, which is what we often do, even as we're carrying our babies.
Yes.
You know, let's look at the sonogram, let's look at the
Yes.
test, that blood test, and so on. But it's so much more than that.
Much,
It's
much
an
deeper.
emotional process.
Yeah.
And this idea of the metaphorical voice, I love the way in which you articulate that, that it impacts those constraints and those limitations is placed on us by society, and we entrench it. And so to
Absolutely.
free ourselves up.
We need to free ourselves from that. And alhamdulillah, but shukran once again for the opportunity, Sister Khadija. Um, and to be at this amazing place, the house shop. Allahu Akbar. I think I think everything just came together so beautifully today, alhamdulillah.
It did,
Shukran once again
absolutely.
for the opportunity.
Always a pleasure and a privilege speaking to you, Auntie Magboeba. Shukran so much for sharing the vast knowledge, not just that you have through your reading, but also through your life experience. We sit and we learn and we try to take in, but all about celebrating ourselves.
Absolutely.
Have yourself a beautiful, beautiful Wednesday, inshallah, and hopefully we'll meet again soon.
Inshallah, Ameen.
Assalamu
And
alaikum.
to Ayub also for his beautiful welcoming smile and the men around here also.
Yeah. No, me and Ayub are going to be sharing
We need
thoughts
to
around.
honor the men in our lives as well.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Auntie Magboeba,
Shukran.
assalamu
Wa alaikum
alaikum.
salam wa rahmatullah.